Why would they do that? The FAA strikes again and SpaceX is hit with another massive fight. SpaceX finishes its first Block 2 ship. When will its first test be? Tower B is quickly taking shape, but is it better than Tower A? China successfully performs another hop test. Will they be able to catch SpaceX? My name is Felix, welcome to What About It, let's dive right in. Starship updates. Welcome back to the rocket facility of the future, Starbase, Texas. There is something on the horizon though. Something's not right, which can be seen in many things SpaceX is doing, or not. After Flight 4, much of that work focused on repairs to the pad following the roar of 33 Raptor engines. Even though they are still too slow to call it rapidly reusable, after the first 3 flights, SpaceX got pretty good at repairs. Now, with Flight 5 likely still a couple of months out, work has turned from repairs and preparations to upgrades and improvements. After all, it is much easier to upgrade a launchpad when there is nothing launching from it. Most of these upgrades have recently focused on the chopstick catch arms ahead of their first real test on Flight 5. Of which many had to do with the structure of the arms to ensure they were strong enough to catch a falling rocket booster. However, removing the bumper near the hinge was one of the most interesting upgrades and changes to these gigantic arms. These bumpers were the first point of contact between the two arms as they closed, preventing them from closing too far. They also prevented the arms from accidentally crushing the ship or booster during a lift or catch. That's why it was so odd that SpaceX removed these a few weeks ago and began covering the spot they were attached to. It seemed that SpaceX just no longer needed them, as they even began performing tests without the bumpers attached. If you're a regular here at Y, you know that. Now here comes the twist, they are back. All that changed a couple of days ago when workers began reattaching the bumpers to their previous location. Did SpaceX initially believe they didn't need these, but after the recent round of tests without them, they realized that was a mistake? Or did they remove them to perform upgrades and reinforcements where they attached? We likely won't know for sure for a while, but it is clear that SpaceX does, after all, need the chopstick bumpers. With that now complete, it seems there isn't much left to do with the chopsticks. Because of that, Booster 14.1 will likely be rolled out any day now to verify these upgrades. Then we'll see how the bumpers fare and if SpaceX will give the test tank a harder slap than usual. As Pad A nears the point where very few upgrades are left, Pad B is just now starting to look like a pad instead of a bunch of spare parts. The tower's nest of disconnected and disjointed wires and pipes is finally being connected, with only a few missing connections across much of it. The majority are at the base of the tower, which up until this point had been missing nearly all of its internal piping. That is quickly changing though. Looking at the base of the tower, we can see quite a few pipes have been connected and are now running through it. Comparing this housing to the one on Tower A, we can also see that this one has had a few upgrades. The roof is quite a bit steeper than Tower A's, which should help with its structural integrity and deflect any flames that manage to reach it. Along with that, the overall structure has been greatly reinforced compared to the original tower. Looking back at this original housing after Flight 1, we can see why SpaceX decided to do this. The housing was shredded and then reinforcements needed to be added on later, so it makes sense that SpaceX would redesign this one with the reinforcements as part of the initial structure. The overall structure may appear quite similar, but almost nothing has remained the same. Major and minor changes are throughout the tower. Segment height, chopstick length, construction procedure, so much is different, and it's all building on the knowledge that SpaceX has gained from its launches at Tower A. Another thing that will likely be different is Tower B's ship quick disconnect. This is because the old design for the SQD needed almost constant repairs after each flight. Unfortunately, this component was the only part of the tower not located at Starbase, so we were curious if it would have those upgrades. And those answers are coming as we finally spotted its first component on its way to Starbase. This component is the hinge, which connects the quick disconnect to the tower and allows it to move. This design is currently identical to the one on Tower A, however, many of the components beyond this will likely be different. The only reason this one likely stayed the same is that the connections on the tower are the same between Tower A and B. One of the other things that's been changing at Starbase is Hoppy. SpaceX has begun scrapping it. Okay, I've made this joke before, but it's at least more accurate this time. Teams have begun removing some of the metal sheets covering Hoppy. These were purely cosmetic and most of them were blown off during launches, so it's interesting to see workers removing them now. It's obvious that SpaceX doesn't want to scrap Hoppy. If they did, they wouldn't have gone through all the effort of moving it first. So we'll have to see what SpaceX's plan for this flying water tower is. Maybe they're prepping Hoppy for launch. SpaceX has not been afraid to scrap projects in the past. That is because its goal is to build hundreds of Starships in a year. That's why SpaceX's Star Factory is so important. Before I tell you about Star Factory, we've looked into our channel metrics and there are over 2 million returning monthly viewers who have not subscribed yet. Help us improve the channel even further by double checking that you've hit that subscribe button so you don't miss our updates. And while you're at it, give us a like and become a wise supporter. Why? Because you'll gain access to massive amounts of extra content. With it, you get access to daily new Starbase photo galleries, including all those we've posted so far, satellite, aerial and ground photos, more than 400 posts in the past 2 years alone, with up to 7 picture galleries per week. Insights, chats with me, you name it. Thank you so much, you rock. Looking at this gigantic complex, we can see that it's nearing completion. In fact, workers have even planted some palm trees. I love that as a Floridian, which, last I checked, tends to be low on the priority list when building a factory. It's unclear what the place looks like inside right now, but considering that we're seeing Block 2 Starships leave it, I'm reasonably sure that it's at least near the end of its base equipment installation. Megabay 2 has also shown it's already online, as we've seen it stack its first Block 2 ship. Apart from the fact that parts from the Star Factory still need to be rolled in through the front rather than the connection on the side, it appears to be operational. That is just the first step though. Gwynne Shotwell repeatedly stated that the goal of the Starship program is to get close to what the automotive industry is doing. True mass production, that's what Star Factory is for. That is clearly not the case yet. Do you think it will ever be? Let me know in the comments. This leaves us with one structure left, the office building. This office building will allow engineers to plan and design the world's largest rockets and hopefully improve SpaceX's paperwork game regarding permits and licenses. This building has seen massive work recently, as it has now received most of its external paneling and windows. Some recent developments show that this office building may be used not only for designing rockets, but also for flying them. Every rocket needs a launch control facility. A launch control center is very important for any launch provider. It gives engineers and launch crew a place to monitor all relevant rocket and ground infrastructure systems before, during, and after a launch. Some of the most critical decisions in spaceflight history have been made in such a launch control room. During a launch, these control centers ensure a rocket flight is safe and proceeding as planned. Right now, for Starship launches, that control center is at their Stargate building, a small structure which was built near the start of the Starship program at Boca Chica and is now one of the oldest structures at the facility. However, given the scale of Starship launches and SpaceX's ambitious plans for its future, this small facility will not last forever. It is just not adequate for what it's supposed to do. It's like launching the largest rocket ever built from a walk-in closet. As a fun fact, my first studio was in a walk-in closet. Good old days in the closet. Yeah, that was something. That is why seeing this in the office building is so interesting. Wait, what even was that? Take a look. From this angle, it might first appear as a wall, but looking at it a bit closer, those are actually individual beams. These are much more numerous than what would be needed for just some simple walls, as you can see in many other locations at Starbase. So it appears that SpaceX is actually adding these to reinforce the office building. That's why we think this might become the new launch control center. After all, you want to keep your crew safe in case of a failure. It would explain the reinforcements well and provide an answer to where SpaceX's launch control center will be. Of course, we could be wrong, and this might just need extra reinforcements so it can house aliens or something. What do you think? Would this be a good spot for a launch control? Or do you think it will be used for something else? Let us know down below. Let's talk about vacation planning for a second. I've got my plans set for October 12th. How about you? Still looking for a nice thing to do? Come to the 2024 Space Creator Day at the Technical Museum Speyer in Germany. I'll be there too. The Space Creator Day is all about meeting your favorite space creators. Started in 2022, this celebration of and for the space community has quickly become an institution. It is Europe's biggest space community event. Besides meeting me and plenty other Team Space content creators, it's also a chance to meet with companies from the aerospace sector. Boost your career, look into aerospace education and network with the important people. Or visit a workshop and learn more about the space industry and our future. I am pleased to announce that you can get 10% off your ticket purchase if you go to spacecreatorday.com/Y and use my code Y10 at checkout. Y will be there with 4 team members, and we'd love to see you there too. What are you waiting for? Code Y10 October 12th, let's meet. This whole production facility is designed to do one thing: build starships. So how is all that construction coming along? Well, it seems some prototypes may be going backward. Specifically, one of the boosters has had one of its components removed. That last component that every Block 1 booster gets now is its hot staging ring. Essentially an interstage that allows the second stage engines to light while still attached to the booster. In current designs, that ring is then jettisoned and discarded as a temporary solution until SpaceX builds its Block 2 booster, which supposedly will have a reusable alternative. Fun fact, the reason why SpaceX currently drops the ring is because it would add too much weight to the top of the booster, making it unstable on return. This hot staging ring could have been booster 12's, but it's hard to tell because the design has been somewhat standardized. However, given the delay to Flight 5, it is possible that SpaceX has opted to upgrade this hot staging ring, perhaps with a lighter version that can stay attached during landing. This may allow SpaceX to recover the hot staging ring before the Block 2 booster even flies. This also gives workers a chance to upgrade some of the components covered under the hot staging rings, such as the grid fin actuators required for landing. And speaking of Block 2s, how is Ship 33 coming along? Well, last week we discussed how Ship 33 received the first of its 2 aft flaps, and now it has received its second. We saw teams lifting the flap on the night of the 17th before attaching it to the ship. Looking closely at the flaps, we can also tell they are likely almost identical to the flaps on Block 1. This would make a lot of sense because unlike the forward flaps, these have not changed location and therefore experience much of the same forces. There may be some slight modifications, but from what we can tell, these Block 2 flaps are just Block 1 flaps with a better heat shield. Wait, if it just got its last aft flap, then does that mean it's done? Well, it is hard to tell for sure as we can't see the internals of the ship, but given the pace that SpaceX has been going with this prototype, it's a pretty good possibility. So that means Ship 33 may be ready to be rolled to Massey's to be tested? It seems so. Other than the engines, SpaceX has successfully completed its first Block 2 Starship, and engines aren't needed for a first cryo-proof test. It's hard to tell how long SpaceX spent working on this prototype in the factory itself, but it has only taken about a month and a half from when we first saw the nose cone rollout to now. Even though that's clearly not one Starship per day, the speed is incredible. Massive congratulations to the SpaceX team for making it happen. You rock! Ship 33's testing may be even closer than you think, in fact. We may have seen a sign that SpaceX is preparing to roll Ship 33 out to Massey's. This is because a roll closure was supposed to be in effect on the 17th. However, this ended up being cancelled for unknown reasons. It's possible this roll closure was intended to roll Ship 33 out to Massey's for cryogenic testing. However, a slight delay may have forced teams to push that back. Another possibility is that this closure was to roll Ship 31 back to the production site. Wait, how about Ship 31's static fire? Nope, after what appears to be 2 failed attempts at a static fire, Ship 31 has still not ignited. These may have just been different tests, but given the fact that SpaceX has not attempted a static fire yet, it is more likely that there has been some sort of hardware problem. With Ship 33 so far in development and Ship 32 all but confirmed to be scrapped, any more delays with Ship 31 could spell doom for this prototype. Although there is another prototype at Massey's, could Test Tank 16 have been the target for this road closure? It doesn't appear so. Test Tank 16 has now completed all of its initial testing. However, SpaceX likely wants at least one more test with this prototype, as it's only performed one horizontal stress test. Workers would also not have been able to detach Test Tank 16 from the can crusher in time for the roll, as we would have seen them scrambling to do so shortly after the last test. Hopefully, we should see Massey's once again come to life with more testing. Remember to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out. All of SpaceX's tasks at Starbase have not come cheap. The cost of the Starship program is likely to reach into the tens of billions as SpaceX attempts to build the world's largest and most advanced rocket. So how the heck can they afford all of that? The answer is pretty surprising: Starlink. SpaceX's satellite internet constellation has been subsidizing the Starship program for the past few years, while Starlink continues to grow its user base and revenue. Just recently, SpaceX has had a huge win. United Airlines, which owns the second largest fleet of commercial airliners in the world with nearly 1,000 aircraft, has announced that it will be providing free Starlink Wi-Fi on all of its planes. This is huge. In fact, it's bigger than most might think. Use cases like this are not only ideal for Starlink, but they are also highly profitable. Despite likely offering lower prices than competitors, SpaceX will still receive a premium compared to the standard commercial terminals, which the airlines will gladly pay. This deal alone could constitute tens of millions in revenue per month for SpaceX, if not more. Imagine many major airlines switching over. That is a massive pile of revenue only from in-flight internet. Air Baltic has made the move even before United. I honestly expect Starlink to be the go-to for airlines in-flight internet from here on. Whoever doesn't have it will have a significant disadvantage in the market. But as Starlink is providing fresh funding for SpaceX's Starship development, the FAA seems to be on a different path. They have once again proposed a fine against SpaceX. In the last episode, we discussed how SpaceX received a $148,000 fine, and now the FAA is proposing a $633,000 fine. We joked that it was getting more expensive. Did we jinx it? Fortunately for the Starship program, this fine is actually related to Falcon 9 operations. This fine is based on SpaceX's use of unapproved changes to launch operation procedures and a newly constructed fuel farm. These fines make sense due to there being safety concerns at an extremely busy spaceport. In fact, for the fuel farm, SpaceX began operating it only a month after submitting a request to the FAA. But why did they wait so long for this? The request for permission was sent from SpaceX to the FAA in July 2023. SpaceX apparently started operating the tank farm the very next month on July 28th of 2023 without a permit. This is one of those cases where the FAA likely should have moved quicker with its approval process, but SpaceX still should have had a bit more patience. That being said, there is one country where regulations don't seem to be much of a problem. I'm of course talking about the most significant US rival, China. And they are quickly catching up. Landspace, which has followed a similar path to SpaceX in terms of rapid design iteration, has successfully flown its ZQ-3 Hopper vehicle up to 10 kilometers before landing it back on the ground. Landspace hopes to use the knowledge gained to develop its very own Falcon 9 class rocket equipped with a reusable first stage. This test showed that they're not playing around. Despite a few incidents during the launch, such as the test vehicle's raceway being blown away during descent, the vehicle landed safely. I know many people will jump at this saying it's just a tiny rocket or a stunt. To those, I'll say remember that the same things were said about SpaceX's Grasshopper or Starhopper. Looking back at that now, it was clear that a lot of the knowledge learned from those paved the way and made SpaceX's success possible. In rocket development, the first step is the hardest, not the last. Over here in the States, there are a few companies attempting to catch up with SpaceX in reusability, such as Blue Origin and Rocket Lab. However, in China, there are plenty as well. Along with Landspace, another company called Deep Blue Aerospace has its own hopper, which is set to launch this month as well. And these are only two of the many companies. That's not even included in the official Chinese space agency's goal of replicating SpaceX's success. It is very clear that regulators in China have been and likely will continue to be hands-off in this area. Given the sluggishness of US regulators and many US companies, including SpaceX, these new, fast-developing Chinese space companies will likely begin to catch up and even overtake some of the older established players. Hopefully reforms are made soon to allow for quicker innovation over here in the States, or else by the time we land on the moon we might need to show our passport to whoever beat us to it. That's it for today. Remember to smash that like button, subscribe for more awesome content. This is what fuels the algorithm. This is how you can help us for free. Check our epic shirts in your favorite Space Nerd store. A new Raptor design and our epic Flight 5 design are both up. Link is in the description. And if you want to train your space IQ even further, watch this video next to continue your journey. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again in the next episode. It's 30 through. This ship is 30 through. Been connected. D-Day. Workers have been planted.